So all of the knowledge, all of the universal codes, all of the truths, everything a spiritual teacher or everything you'll learn from any universal truths, they're all already within you. So a spiritual teacher or a guru or like people like Muji and Eckhart Tolle and the Buddha and Jesus, these people were really, these beings were trying to direct people inward to the truth within them because that's where everything is found. And that really applies to awakening and activating your DNA. And that's what a Kundalini awakening will do. It will start activating those codes and those blueprints within you. So your evolutionary blueprint might be have a certain purpose for this life cycle. And if you're just living out your old conditioning, you're not going to connect with that life purpose. But a Kundalini awakening, what it will do, it will activate those DNA codes. It will activate those blueprints within you so that you are more able to know who you really are, which is a spiritual being, an infinite, eternal spiritual being that is just having a temporary human experience in form. Like I say a lot, your body comes out of consciousness rather than consciousness comes out of your body. So once we really know that to be true, that in and of itself will help us to activate these codes that will really activate our DNA. And what I mean by activate our DNA is this. We activate everything I just talked about, all the knowings, the truths, the universal knowledge from our heart center. So when we are able to open our heart and really kind of detach from identification with the unconsciousness and the mind, when we do that, we are able to higher our frequency in our body. And through opening the heart, through highering our frequency, that DNA changes. The DNA that was once dormant in us and being kept dormant through fear programming and suppression and oppression and this heavy conditioning for control and for psychic control, all of those programs and conditioning begin to fall away as we activate our DNA that's been dormant because it's been there. We're meant to be a storehouse for the truth. This body is a vessel of light, and that was its intended purpose. And this pain body we've been carrying, this is generational pain. This is something that has really dictated human behavior and human unconsciousness for so many generations. So when you have a Kundalini awakening or a spiritual awakening in general, what you're doing is you're activating the codes that have been dormant, the DNA blueprints that have been dormant for so many generations. And as they activate, you begin to let go of this heavy conditioning and this fear-based programming. And you start opening your heart more and more. And the more you open your heart, the more light you're allowed that floods into your being. And the more light that floods in, the more DNA, more of this dormant DNA of your higher self, of your true self, of your essence, the more this dormant DNA activates. And the more this activates, the more we clear. And the more we clear, the more we activate. And it becomes this self-perpetuating cycle of activating and clearing, activated and clearing. And that's what people mean when they say you're shedding layers of the ego, of the old self, of the illusionary self, of the fearful programming. That all goes. So that is a much more concise way to get right to the point of this DNA change that we go through when we're going through a Kundalini or a spiritual awakening. It all starts with coming into your heart center and opening your heart, because your heart is where the higher vibrations live. Your heart is the gateway to your source, to your connection, to everything, to your highest potential as an evolutionary being. So it's all about opening the heart, and that's what the Kundalini really does. The Kundalini will just bring you to your knees and it will force you to surrender, and it will force you to let go of your identification and attachments to the unconscious mind. And that's such a big part to be able to open our heart, is to find stillness in the mind by letting go of contracting on every thought and giving interest and your belief to every thought. Instead, just rest in your space of being, rest in the field of consciousness, the infinite awareness that you are, and allow your heart to open. And in that way, your DNA will begin to change. You will begin to heal generations of trauma and pain. It will end with you. You will no longer pass on that trauma that was passed on to you through the generations. And you will activate this DNA that has been dormant in you for so many generations. And in that way, you are going to begin to flower into this ray of light that this earth puts you here to be, because that's what the planet needs right now, is more people to embody more light. And as you activate this DNA through opening your heart, through letting go of the fear programming, you begin to be exactly what you're meant to be here, which is a pillar of light to help this world just explode into light.